all right, so the Bardos. The Bardos is called the Bardos. That term comes from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And the Tibetan Book of the Dead was written by a profound prophet of their day. And it has been corroborated by many other accounts. I think the Egyptian Book of the Dead also corroborates this. And then there's other indigenous tales that corroborate what this prophet wrote about. So what this is that there's a life review. And the life review is a process that is so in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, let me back up for a second. They talk about in order to pass through the portal of death successfully, your heart needs to be as light as a feather. Okay, that uplifting light as a feather. And what happens in the life review is that we see things as they are for the first time, and we judge ourselves. We are attached to it. We latch on. And in the language of the Bardos, they called this the I think it was the Great Labyrinth, the great labyrinths of scenes. And in this labyrinth, there are different scenes from your life that you get to see. And as soon as you engage with any one of those scenes, like you try to hold on to any one of those scenes, you instantly go back into the reincarnational cycle of this reality. So there are many ways to go through with to process this, to navigate, and they've been written about and many been talked about. Some beings don't want to go back into the reincarnational cycle, and they want to go truly back to source or back to the sun. And once you're back to the sun, and that sun, as soon as you're in this, all right, so we're in a massively multidimensional reality. Okay, so all these layers are on top of each other, and according to what frequency and you're on is how you're going to experience this being. So the sun, the central being, is also in the core of our earth. There's a sun in the core of our earth, which also is the central sun, which is also the center of the cosmos. So it's separate, but it's also the same. So think about it as like sympathetic resonance. When you're in resonance, when one key is in resonance, the other keys vibrate as well, right? The other strings vibrate as well. So that it's more like that kind of thing. If your brain needs that to wrap around what I'm trying to say. So, all right, hold on. Let me get back. There's this. So the Bardos and Life Review. So some people talk about turning away from the light. Other people talk about and just choose not to go through the Life Review. That is an interesting strategy. It may work. It may not. It really depends on how much peace you died with, right? If there was a lot of holding on and suffering and pain and agony and all this stuff, there's going to be a lot of things that you're not prepared to deal with when you turn away from the light. So that piece, be careful. But I know when I had my experience, it was when I didn't turn away from the light, but what happened is that I just happened to look up, turn around and look up, and there was the cosmos, the entire cosmos was there. And it was like, oh. And so, you know, we all have our very unique pieces to the experience here. For some people, it's, you know, they see their loved ones, they go into the tunnel, they do the life review, in which case spiritual teachings prepare you to forgive, prepare you with the transmissions, the frequencies, the capacities to forgive. And that means exercise your divine capacity of forgiveness. Okay, and they prepare people that way to go into the life review. So different lineages, different spiritual practices, dogmas, whatever, they talk about this, and they have different ways of preparing you for going through it. Now, just you listening to this conversation, just you having an imagining of these pieces, what I'm, you know, how you're associating with it, that is activating enough for you to have a different kind of experience when you choose to accept the letting go of this life and this reality. Okay. Now, there are people that die that don't accept the letting go of this reality, and they just are in delusion of this reality. And a great example of that is shown to us in, well, many movies, but the most recent one that comes to mind is the Sixth Sense movie. The Bruce Willis character, he didn't know he died, and he was just going through the motions of his life. But going through the motions of his life, he was completely, it was hollow, it was empty. He wasn't happy. He was just off in his study and in his own inner world. And the only real fruitful interaction that he had was with this little boy. And it was because this, you don't find out to the end of the movie, so spoiler alert. And what he doesn't find out until the end of the movie, that the little boy was interacting with him because he was in the living world, and the little boy could see ghosts, can see spirits, and that eventually woke him up to realize, oh my God, I've been dead this whole time and I didn't know. So the 4D field is really, really potent. Okay. Whatever you strongly want and believe in, it can manifest out of the 4D field. And sadly, you have beings that take advantage of that because we don't recognize what kind of rich life force, endless, imaginative, creative life force we are. And we don't understand that there's beings that covet what we are, and have designed all sorts of systems to lure us or trick us, or, to loosh off us in certain ways. Now, it's all done by agreement. A lot of times we don't know, and that's how the collective field works, either silent agreement or whatever. We all operate in agreement. That field operates within agreement. So if it's happening because somewhere along the line you gave permission for it. Sometimes we give permission to things not understanding what we give permission for, and that happens actually more than you realize. So that's another thing that goes on, right? So let me get back to the free will thing. I started to veer off course. I'll read your guys' comments in a minute, and because I want to get to the free will. So yes, you are born with the pre-programming with your family, but there's also this amazing thing called free will. Now, free will isn't necessarily the baseline of this reality, let's say it like that, but it does exist in very specific places, especially when it comes down to the truth of your soul, right? You guys have heard the idea of bargaining for your soul, meeting the devil at the crossroads and selling your soul. It's like that. Those kinds of experiences, those kinds of interactions are your free will at work. So is healing, so is changing timelines, completely transcending the family. And this is what the Tao talk about. All amazing practices within the ancient Tao. It's all about releasing you from the family programming, the family lineage in your subconscious so you can truly live. And in the past, that's taken at least 40 years of diligent work, starting from the time of a young child. So, I mean, that's the old paradigm. New paradigm, a lot of us are already born activated. We're already born on this level. And then we have to endure the ridiculous indoctrination that happens that's designed to shut us down. Now, those of us who have a lot of fight, we didn't shut down. We just, developed a bad attitude. Right? But we persevered, and here we are. So the free will. So this is where the work of epigenetics comes in, and Bruce Lipton, who I love to listen to him talk, because what he is, the field that he is the groundbreaker of is the epigenetics, and that is the impact that your own thoughts, feelings, and belief systems have on your physiology and your genes. So say you were born into an addicted family, and there was a lot of abuse. Maybe there was some religious oppression. There's all these things going on that were not true to you, but it was in your genes, right? So growing up, you would have to, each moment of sinking the programming, the conditioning in more, you have an opportunity to accept it or not accept it. And the more you're not accepting of it, the more likely you are when you are, as an adult, you live a completely different life than the life that you came from. Okay, this is your free will at work, because now you're making decisions based on your own truth, really decisions probably your grandparents and parents and, great-grandparents wish they could have made that choice, right? But here you are making that choice. And now you are changing the kinds of genes that are activating in your system. So you can shut genes off with your belief systems and practices, and you can turn genes on. And this is scientifically showing us how powerful and potent it is for us to work with our ancestors. So imagine if you didn't have to spend so much life force energy staving off what you don't want. Imagine if all that life force energy was shifted into something supportive. It was a structure that's a foundation that you can lean on and literally launch yourself off of into the truth of who you are and what you want and your purpose, right? And this is why it's so powerful for women to wake up. Okay, please wake up. And it's not about the practices that you do, it's about the depth of your presence, the level of acceptance you're able to have for yourself and everything around you, right? Because, like I said in the beginning, your grandchildren and children developed in your womb together. The next 2 generations develop together while during that time, right? So it's a profound thing for women to wake up. And men, we need you too. You absolutely are needed, and you have such a vital role. I know that there's a lot of, I've seen a lot of conversations, some blind leading the blind and some really profound. So, all I can say is that you guys got to work that out. And I'm here to encourage the ones that are in resonance, that are integrity, right?